Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That's the podcast about itself, ourselves, and the self in general. My name is Ty. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Distance. He's over that direction. And tonight we have a special guest, our friend, fellow streamer, Bridget Posh Spice. GothxSpice.
Posh Spice? Wow.
She's down there somewhere. Is that the right direction? Yeah, you're down there. There you go.
I'm down here somewhere. Posh Spice, I'll take it. Oh shit.
Oh shit. Hey, thank you for the raid, buddy. That is very nice of you. I appreciate that. Oh man, that threw me off. What are we doing? Okay, so I introduced us. We have a special guest. So yeah, tonight we are having a discussion about masculinity. And it's a Distance. Do you want to do an intro? Because this is like this kind of your topic. You're the one that chose kind of the platform and what we're doing here. What are we doing tonight? What are the goals?
Well, I mean, admittedly, it's kind of a beat down topic, just because but for good reason. I mean, it's discussed quite a lot because I think that I guess the main reason why I think it's an important thing to discuss is because it's sort of determining if there's still a unique experience to life, I guess, being biologically male versus being biologically female. And also the word itself probably won't go away. So we need to kind of figure out how that works now, because lots of things have changed a whole lot in the West in the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just sort of trying to find some sort of meaning in the term and where it applies now and where it fits in and who it applies for, and if it's even like a good thing to continue to encourage in people.
Okay.
It's just a general whole idea, because the thing is that if you look up the word, it's like in the dictionary, it doesn't tell you much. It's just like,
yeah.
I think the problem is that it's poorly defined for just about everybody. You can talk to people in their 70s and their 40s and their 50s, and you'd think that they would have these ridiculous ideas of what the word means, but most of it's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my barber what masculinity means. He's like, I don't know. Doing guy stuff.
That's yeah. I mean,
Doing guy stuff.
Yeah, it's
All right.
and the thing is he's actually a really clever guy, and I
Mhm.
expected something much more nuanced and interesting than that, because he's actually really smart. But I was just like, okay.
Well, that is the interesting thing about this discussion is so if anyone doesn't know, this is the this is part 2 of this discussion. We're intending to have, I guess, basically maybe a 4-episode series that all kind of circle around this same topic. The first one was I guess a loose debate between Distance and I, because we kind of have differing views on like you were saying, I guess the usefulness of this idea. So now we're going to bring on guests and explore their ideas on the topic as well. So that is one of the things we ran into in the first discussion is like you were pointing out, the term means completely different things to different people. It's I feel like a lot of people have an accepted idea of what masculinity means, but it's not the same for everyone. You ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. There's probably going to be some crossover between those answers. They're all going to be in some sort of wheelhouse that there's similarities, but it is not a objective thing with very hard lines, I feel like.
Yeah, I think there's I agree with you. I think there's going to be some overlap, but it's not really necessarily something that we just have a concrete definition of, which, I guess that comes to the question of, how would you define masculinity, Bridget?
I think that we as a society have 2 different definitions of masculinity, and one of them is more generally speaking, we have the whole lift things, go out and chop wood for the fire, doing the man stuff, as your barber would say.
Like wearing
And then-
flannel? Is that one?
Yeah, wearing a blue flannel shirt on a podcast about masculinity.
Pretty masculine.
And then there's another version I think is more relevant within, say, the trans community, where it's more about expression than it is what you were born as, or what you can do physically, if that makes sense. Like you like in the trans community, it's like either like masculine or feminine presenting rather than just being like a dude or a chick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So would you say that? So is the idea of masculinity something that's only allowed for males, or is that
No.
something that's like cool?
Not at all. I think that it's just as important as for females to be able to like freely do masculine things without judgment, just as much as it is for males to do things that are feminine without judgment, like crying
Mhm.
or showing your feelings. Like, if a chick, stands up for herself without the help of, a dude or something like that, like it shouldn't it's not for just one sex, I think. And it shouldn't be.
Mhm.
So I guess, but the origin of the terms is that they were, because if you look up either of them, the first sentence you'll see is behavior or traits typically associated with men, behavior or traits typically associated with women,
Mhm.
and like that's pretty much all you get. And then there's like maybe 2 words for masculinity and like 2 words for femininity. It's like
Right.
femininity, the most diabolical word in the
Enemy.
English language. Uh, yeah. So, would you say that there's like, I guess it's kind of like the question is like, why historically have we associated one set of behaviors with men and the other set of behaviors with women? I realize that's a difficult question to answer, but
I think that it's based completely on biological sex and the fact that males are more prone to be stronger, like, physically, and taller and bigger, and like one side is like, ooh, big strong man, and then the feminine side is like small, dainty, take care of house. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I feel like,
So I guess the definition you're thinking of is that because of the person's like physical form, that they might be more adept or have more aptitude towards certain types of tasks.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like, and that I'm talking about if you strip away literally everything else that has come along with it so far. So, like at the very, very core of it, it's like, big strong man, go out, kill tiger. Woman, stay in cave. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm. So then, do
Yeah.
you think that like masculinity to you then is it basically something that a person has, something that they do, or something that they are?
I feel like it can be any of those things dependent completely on the person. Like I feel like a cis man who, wants to be, like present super masculine and like go to the gym and be very muscular and very like strong, like let me protect you kind of thing. Like that's like, like the way they look. I feel like there's people like trans people who want to just like be seen as masculine, whether it be like, by their clothes, their hair, they, do HRT to grow facial hair. Like
Mhm.
it's completely dependent on the person, I think.
Okay. Okay. Is there any chance that you see any problems with like I guess one of the issues that I have with it is that like we started to point out, the fact that the terms feminine and masculine are linked to the genders or the sexes. And like we started to say, like I think everyone exists on a spectrum where every man has masculine and feminine traits, every woman has feminine and masculine traits. Because they're linked to that, is there a chance that like as a woman having masculine traits makes you feel like less of a woman? You feel like less feminine because like they're two sides of one coin. If you're doing something that aligns masculine, does that mean you're being less feminine? Does that take away from
Right.
your womanhood in any way or anything like that?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that people may feel that way, but you're asking somebody who's really open-minded about that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
like, I believe that those two things are meant to complement each other, not cancel each other out.
Okay.
That's always been my whole thing. It's, they say that it's like, you know, one is better than the other, but I think that on a scale, men and women complement each other in a way where one lacks something and the other one will be able to make it up. And you can, and the same thing, with like that being within yourself, like with gender expression or doing typically masculine things whenever you're a woman. Like it can only add to and complement the way that you already are instead of canceling it out. I think that's just me.
Okay, no,
So
yeah, I like that.
I'm assuming the next question would be then if you're a biological man and you do things that are thought of as being more feminine, does that threaten your manhood or make you less of a man?
Society today says that it does for some stupid fucking reason, but I don't think that at all.
Yeah, definitely in my experience, I feel that pressure.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on guys these days to not show emotion or do anything remotely feminine, because for some reason if you do one feminine thing it takes all of your masculinity away, or at least that's what they tell you, and I don't get it. But
you know what they say, you can spend your whole life building 100 bridges, but you fuck one goat and what are they going to call you?
the goat fucker.
Yeah,
we ask the hard questions here, folks.
We
True.
really do.
We make the bold
we do
statements.
it live. We do it live.
So I guess that, and I don't mean to be crass in saying this, but I actually kind of despise the term these days, because I don't think that there's anything different now about a lot of things, like when like the whole idea of like applying a lot of pressure to people to be a certain way. I mean, I don't know that that's ever really been different than it is now, because I think when someone says these days, it's like in contrast to before, when in reality I think that there's probably for a long time been a lot of pressures on, well, it's like I think both sexes, to be a certain way or feel a certain way. Like I realize this might be a bit ridiculous or maybe even a tangent, but I don't know how credible this is, but I watched a segment of Adam Ruins Everything today where he was talking about how I think it was Gillette, whatever their name was at the time, were like, okay, we got all these men buying razors, they're shaving. How do we get women to shave? They have no hair on their. It's just fuzz. I know will make them think that it's attractive to shave their legs. Yeah. And why stop there? Why not underarms? We'll do a whole ad campaign about how womanly and beautiful it is to have hairless legs and underarms. And it's like that's, I mean, maybe that's more of a these days thing, because that wasn't necessarily like a thing before. Like, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, for the male thing, I think that's been for a long time, maybe even thousands of years.
You're right, and I think that I said these days in the wrong context, because I kind of meant to flip that. Like, it's only gotten better. Like it used to be super bad. Like, men couldn't stay at home and take care of the kids. If you hugged your child, you were a queermosexual. Like it, you couldn't do anything. No love, no tears, nothing. Big strong man, go to work and come home and beat your wife. That's what you do. But it's gotten better since then, right? Like it's now very. It's getting to a point where it's okay for guys to cry, like, and all of the internet everywhere, I see it all the time, which I'm a huge fan of. It's like, hey, guys have feelings too. Let's not. Let's, like, have you ever seen the man up meme where it's that dude drowning and his hand sticking out of the water, and it's like male depression. It's like man up.
Yep.
No,
Like
I've never seen that one, but that's hilarious.
It's good stuff, but it's basically saying, like, it's dumb to do that. It's dumb to not take into consideration that men are still humans that have like feelings and emotions, and for some reason being emotional is a feminine trait to a lot of people, which I don't understand, because we all have brains. So these days it's much better than it was, and I sort of flip-flopped that, so I apologize.
And to some degree, like when you say and to some degree, I guess that's maybe a true statement. Yeah, like, I mean, I believe in using the term these days sparingly, but I think it works in that situation. So I wasn't trying to get all like hung up on semantics or whatever, but
right. So you want me to say these days literally every time I say anything now?
Yes, please.
Got it. Got it.
every single time. If you could work it
Every time.
twice into one sentence, that would be ideal.
Oh,
Have you ever seen
challenge accepted?
have you ever seen a man stab himself in the eye with a ballpoint pen? Because I think it.
I would love to.
Oh god, that's hilarious. So.
Oh man.
So there definitely there can be situations where
Mm-hmm.
that pressure can be negative. Like you're saying, I guess we're moving away from that, but there is something there that it almost like dictated how a man is supposed to behave and kind of put our actions within a box. And it's like, okay, if you step outside of this box, you're not being masculine. And like we
further in this say you're not a man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That led to it leads to that.
Which is apparently like the most demeaning thing ever.
Well, it is interesting how that's an insult. You know, it's like,
yeah.
Like I remember hearing like even in like an Eminem interview where he talked about using like the F slur in songs, and he was like, no, it's not homophobic. It's just the most insulting thing you can do to a man is strip him of his manhood by calling him like a woman or calling him gay or things like that. Like that's what he considered to be like the worst insult you could give to a man, basically.
Yeah, and which to me like, and I'm sure you guys probably agree with me, which to me is like, how is being gay meaning you're not masculine? I don't understand like where the parallel is. But you know, another thing, I'm really not what you would call like a bleeding heart or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not like typically like way left on anything. I tend to lean left, I think, on most things. But like I do kind of jump all over other dudes for using being female as an insult.
Yeah.
I'm like, aren't you like married to one of those? Aren't you raising one? Like,
don't you
why?
have a mom?
Yeah, and to me, like, I understand that it's like it's intended to be like all in fun in many situations, but it's just it's not. And I'm not like someone that gets like, I'm not super like crazy about controlling language, but like it's not even logical to me. Like it doesn't even make sense.
Well, I think it's rooted in some sort of tradition, right?
Yeah, like sort of like, oh, we need you to go and dig this ditch and fight this war. Or you can be at home with the women. And it's like, because like, or you can be at home with the equally valuable human that's toiling away all day doing a very difficult thing that you sure as hell wouldn't be able to do. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that building skyscrapers in the 1930s was glamorous or lovely. I'm sure plenty of men died doing that work. But it's just not fair, because it's like, I think that, because of perspective, I think that most people that I know, most reasonable people I know, is that maybe different, but not better. Like either trait is different, but not necessarily better. Because I mean, like we've talked about, well, I guess one thing I'm curious to hear, like very specifically, is, do you, Bridget, do you have, because we talked about negatives, but are there like positives to the whole masculinity thing? Like, I mean, I guess, could you like, with the purpose of weighing the two, positives and negatives, I mean, could you sort of describe the two that you see, I guess, for the masculinity thing?
Absolutely. Sorry, there's a cat on my lap. Yeah, no, I think that positive masculinity is just as much of a thing as negative masculinity, and I especially for like young boys that are like, how do I explain this? No, sorry. Like for young boys who are like a young like cis man that was like a male born as a male, the whole, normal. I think there are a lot of good positive traits in masculinity, like being protective, like that's, a good thing, like, protecting your family, protecting your loved ones, being a hard worker. And I'm not saying, and these are just traits of masculinity, not men. Like I am those things. I protect my family. I bust my ass at work every day. Like those are positive traits of masculinity. Whereas like the toxic ones are, don't be feminine, don't cry, man up, all that other stuff. Because it's been for the longest time that being female is innately bad. And whenever we're looking at this subject, it's been females are bad, like be a man, we're females are the weaker sex, like you win, you need to do this and this and this. And then it kind of turned into, wait, like, no, wait, being female is like a good thing. Like, be proud of yourself. Like, I'm a woman, hear me roar. And now it's kind of flipped into that. Plus, like, men can be feminine too, and that's okay. It's fucking okay. It's fine. Go cry. Do you need me to hold you? I will hold you.
I do kind of want to cry a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of do this thing with my male friends if they're going through like a tough time. Someone just broke up with them. I'm like, hey, you want a hug or a beer or both? You know, a lot of the time it's like, how about several beers and then a hug? Because it's like, it's sad though. It's like, I gotta get drunk before I can hug you, dude. Like,
yeah.
like it's hilarious. So do you think that there's a way that, is there a way that the phrase, because I realize that in most contexts it's not, but is there a way that the phrase man up could actually be positive if used in a specific fashion? Or do you think that the phrase is always negative or not useful?
That's a tough one. That's very dependent on the context, the way it was said, the way you sound when you say it. Like, it's yeah, it's because it's like one of those things where people will start saying a word so much that it turns into that word. Like, people use the word literally so much that they put it in the dictionary as figuratively.
Yep.
Because they don't mean literally, they mean right. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the term man up has become so ingrained into being negative. Like, you know, you're a pussy, don't do that. Like, I feel like it's very sensitive still. Like, to not, and like I said, it would have to be very specific to like, or like in jest. If you're like, you know, man up and talk about your feelings, or like man up and give me a hug, or like anything like that, yes. But like in a serious, like, you are doing something wrong, man up and do it a different way. I feel like that's still a little too sensitive. It's too soon.
Would you feel like anytime that's used, if it was switched with grow up, it would mean the same thing but actually be positive? Because I feel like they're almost interchangeable, but there's less baggage attached to man up. I think that like man up can kind of sound derogatory, whereas grow up, you may take it as offense, but only because you realize you're being childish.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, to me, that just sounds like an almost strictly better way of saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, I feel like it's a little bit more specific to people like acting childish. Like, if you, like, say, you know, if somebody is, you know, having a rough time mentally and you tell them to grow up or man up in any way, shape, or form, it's kind of shitty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it, like I said, it's based on context. And I like, give me an example, like, of somebody doing something and you saying like grow up, to like, you know, kind of be like, hey, look, you're being kind of a dick, like, stop. Because I'm having trouble like picturing in my mind like where that would be acceptable, I think.
Well, I mean, I was just kind of, you know, introducing it as an replacement for man up. So like, where is a situation where man up would be acceptable, and would grow up fit the same way? I guess is the question I'm asking.
Could we well, you know, I can.
You know?
Can I give two scenarios?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's say that you have a friend. Okay, me. It's me.
Okay.
And so that's very specific. This gives so much context. And oh, better yet, hold on. Let's switch this around. I don't want to be too much of a narcissist. Let's say you're talking to Ty.
Oh God.
And that what? So
that changes everything.
What? No, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to make it too much about me. So let's say that you're talking to Ty, and he doesn't necessarily have a lawn, but let's say that he is very annoyed by the fact that he's gonna have to mow the lawn on Saturday when he'd rather be doing something cool like
playing
going
World
out.
of Warcraft.
Playing World of Warcraft, going out and grabbing a beer with me, whatever.
Playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, making me come over to his place with beer so he can play World of Warcraft while we drink beer.
Right, exactly.
I'm sorry, we're being assholes right now.
No, I love it. I love you guys.
So, okay, forget about the world. He could be doing something else fun. Insert fun thing here.
Right.
But it's like it's kind of overgrown, and he's just really upset about the fact that he's going to have to do this, and he really doesn't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it appropriate or inappropriate to tell him to man up in that situation?
Kinda. I mean, I don't like what.
Kind of appropriate or kind of inappropriate?
Kind of inappropriate. Like I don't see what being a man has to do with mowing a lawn.
I think it's appropriate. I think a big part of being a man is handling your responsibilities, doing things you don't want to do that have to get done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's kind of what. Okay, what if it were?
But I also think that's a big part of being adult. I think the grow up works there in the same way.
Okay. See, yeah, now I'm seeing that. I would much prefer grow up in that scenario than I would man up. Like I said, and the reason why my initial reaction to that, like, even though it wasn't really that negative, it still tweaks a little thing in my mind where I'm just like, I'd just rather not say that to anybody, like, at all.
Yeah. So I guess would you, if you had a female friend of yours who consider themselves to be primarily feminine or identified as cisgender, what have you, and they did the same thing and expressed the same disdain for doing that task, would you tell them to grow up?
Yeah, I absolutely would, because I am the kind of person who takes care of my responsibilities, like, as an adult. Like, if something needs to get done, I will suck it up and do it, because that's how being an adult works. And the whole once begun half done thing is like a thing with me. So like I just fucking do it. I just like, damn, this is gonna suck, but the sooner I start, the sooner it's over with, and then I can be like, shit, I did that, cool, I can go play World of Warcraft now. You know what I mean?
I love that you said it that way, because Insidious in chat did point out that man up is basically like suck it up. Those are more interchangeable. I think that that's a better example than grow up. And I don't know if you read that before you said that, but that was pretty perfect.
No, I didn't. Good job, Insidious.
And I say suck it up to the children in my family all the time. Like my niece, my well, I rarely have to say it to my niece because she doesn't like whine. I've actually never had to tell her to suck it up ever. Because she's just like, at one point, actually, one of my nephews was complaining about, like, it's like washing the dishes or something. And I was like, and he goes, "Are you about to tell me to suck it up?"
Yes.
How did you know? Because you always do. I'm like, okay, well,
you should probably suck it up then.
What you gonna do now?
Go do the dishes. But it's like, but I wouldn't, like, if, for instance, and this is maybe a bit morbid, at some point my mother is going to die. And that's his grandmother. Mm-hmm. So like, if she kicks it and he, like, starts to cry about it at the funeral, even if he's like bawling, like hugging his mom, whatever, I'm not going to tell him to suck it up then, because that's just stupid. That's just damaging, right? Because like that's the cool thing is that, like, I think with language now we have a very useful term where we can blanket those things under. You just take masculinity and then you put the word toxic in front of it, and it's essentially like all the shit that people do, like the boys don't cry bullshit, that we know is bad. And it's toxic. Like, it's really bad because you're causing this dissonance in a child between how they're feeling and how they're acting.
Yeah, it's
and then they grow up, right? And they grow up and they continue as an adult to do the same unhealthy stuff, and it's so bad for them. So I guess it's like the difference between having a real difficult experience in your life. Because, like, if, for instance, because his grandmother's my mom. It's like when my mom croaks and I'm sitting here like in tears about it, neither one of you would tell me to either grow up or man up or suck it up, because that's just fucking stupid.
No, it's purely situational.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them apply in that situation.
Yeah. In a situation where, like, let's say you had a friend that ended themselves up in some financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And it was completely their fault. Like, they bought a Corvette they couldn't afford and then ended up with a house that was too expensive, and now they're at this point where they're having difficulty affording things. Mm-hmm. Their house might get foreclosed, their car might get repossessed, but it's all something that they did.
Yeah. Can it be their crippling crack addiction? I think that would be a good
addictions.
Oh, that's a different topic. All right,
that's
never mind. All right.
Whole different
we have
podcast.
to have a whole other conversation.
God damn it. Okay, you're right.
That thing.
You're right.
So I think getting into ridiculous amounts of debt and not being sensible about money is pretty much your own doing. So it's like if someone is upset and they're kind of more or less kind of complaining about their financial situation, but it's their doing, then it's kind of like that's a situation where it's like, grow up, suck it up, whatever.
I think they all fit though, right? Like there's not one that fits more than the other. Like grow up, man up, and suck it up all kind of apply.
Yeah. So it's like which one is like, because I mean honestly, like I never tell men to man up, but I tell women to man up all the time.
That's not hold on. You tell me to man up all the time. I think you do. You may do it like tongue in cheek though, but you definitely do. Unless you consider me a woman. Hold on.
I do it in jest with you.
That's a whole other can of worms.
But that's the thing, is like assuming that like it doesn't matter what I consider you. If you consider you a woman, then that matters. But it doesn't matter what I consider you. But it's like, but you see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there's a difference between like just showing some character and like having a healthy amount of, grit, and I think that that's good for everybody. And tell me if this annoys you too, Bridget. Actually, both of you guys. I mean, she's the guest, so I'm like, haha.
Yeah.
So, don't you hate that damsel in distress bullshit in movies? Like, I hate it when there's a helpless female character. That upsets me.
I honestly, like, I never really thought about it enough for it to bother me, ?
Have you seen the movie Bright?
No.
Right.
Okay.
It was Bright.
Watch that.
We've had this conversation. We had this conversation last Saturday. Never ask me a question that begins with "Have you seen the movie?" Because the chances are the answer is no.
You can stop it at "Have you seen?" Honestly,
so
like the movie doesn't. Like it just "Have you seen?" Nope. Not at all. It was Bright, the Will Smith Netflix movie. Yeah. Okay.
And like, there's that one. I forget the character, but they basically like drag her around and she's completely helpless the entire film.
But and she doesn't she know magic?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
exactly.
She's like probably the most powerful one out of them, and
like,
she's makes no sense.
Like use your magic. What the fuck are you doing? Like I hate that, because I think that it gives the perception or the idea that this female character has to have a male to, and here's the thing, like I was actually listening to a comedian a while ago that was saying like, it's like, he was talking about women. He's like, you guys were smart. You made your gender roles offensive, but like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And there's a noise downstairs, and my wife's like, go downstairs and check it out. Like, am I allowed? You think it's the 1950s? You go down and check it out. It's like, because to me, I think it's just like, it's sort of like, what are you willing and not willing? Because like the whole thing you said about being like complimentary is that, maybe someone who just happens to have a Y chromosome has some traits that are thought of as feminine that actually complement another someone with two X chromosomes, a biological female, and maybe the vice versa, like the other one has like what are thought of as masculine traits, and they can still complement each other in some way.
I think that happened in Shrek. Fiona was like she like was almost sold as the damsel in distress, but totally wasn't. In the end, they like balanced each other out to become like.
That's true.
And she ended up being like this super badass who kicked like the ass of many men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a Matrix reference.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
that's how badass it was. They turned her into Trinity from the Matrix.
Yeah,
but for me, it's kind of like I think of the traits that we think of as like the not the toxic ones, but the other like not toxic traits of masculinity. I think they're good for everybody. Like I really do.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is really funny is that like I don't think that obviously people are different, but I don't think generally speaking that most humans really need help with empathy or with kindness. I think that a lot of people, they sort of figure that out from exposure kind of on their own. So I think that a lot of the traits that we think of are feminine are just things that are just very human. And it's unfortunate that there's a whole a whole sex of people in the West that historically have sort of been told to act like they don't have this human thing. You know.
Yeah. It's like I said, it was considered innately bad for the longest time. It's, for some reason you can't like cry and get your work done, or like have feelings and then get up and get your briefcase and go make money for your family the next day. And that's stupid.
And the thing you said about being protective as being like a generally thought of as a masculine thing. I agree with you that most of the time people have thought of that as being masculine, but dude, you want to know the most terrifying thing ever?
My mother?
A mother bear?
That exact mentality. When a mother truly believes their child is in danger, that is the most ferocious thing you will ever see in your life. And to me, I think of that as being extremely feminine. Like in the best, most beautiful way possible. Like that is just like, God damn, like you tough. Like I remember when I was a little boy, it was like a high school football game. My mom was like working the concession stand because my sister was in band, and some older boy like pushed me down, and my mom saw it. Like, no joke. I don't mean to embarrass you, Mom. Also, sister, if you're watching this is one of the football games that you were playing flute and band in. So yeah, she might remember this. She might not. Sorry, Mom. Don't mean to make you sound crazy.
When you started that sentence with one of the football games you were playing, I thought she was like smashing gender stereotypes and playing football.
Yeah.
And you kind of
the quarterback.
Yeah.
Honestly, I find the women's like serious like women's football to be fantastically more entertaining. Look it up. It's great. But my mom, like, she grabbed this kid very forcefully by the arm, fairly certain she bruised him. And one of his arms was broken. He was in a cast. She grabbed the other one and he was like, my arm's fractured. And she was like, well, maybe I'll toss you over this fence and fracture the other one.
Oh, damn.
Like, I mean, it's terrifying. Or there's actually, I was listening to, I forget the guy's name. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about like crazy stuff that happens with law enforcement, or just violence in general. And he not glorifying it, but is sort of like talking about it. And he talked about like a mom that like shot this person like 3 times. Actually, maybe more, because they were attempting to steal her vehicle that her children were in.
Okay.
And so to me, it's like being protective is a little bit of both. I mean, I think that for me, like I have a certain degree of, because I don't have a kid, but like for the kids in my family, I have a certain degree of, I feel protective over them in a lot of ways. Like if the roof caves in, everyone else might die, but like my niece won't, like my nephew won't. Like, well, I'm not very big, so me throwing myself over them, we might just both die. But here, you get a big hug before we die.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have that with my own mother. When my brother was little, he was doing something. He'd like snuck away and was playing like near a construction site, like close to where like they were at. And there was one of those really big like the cement cylinders that are hollow for like sewage piping, like the really fucking big ones. And it was raining and he was standing beside of it, and his like the ground underneath it shifted and it rolled on top of him.
Oh shit.
And my mother pushed it. It was like halfway on his body. It was like up to here. And my mother pushed it off of him with her bare hands.
Jesus.
Yeah, so you don't fuck around with a mom whose kid's like in actual like life-threatening danger. And to speak to the whole protection thing, it's kind of like the slope of like humanity. Like, okay, I am a woman, so I am smaller than, generally speaking, I'm smaller than a man. I'm 5'4" and I weigh 103 pounds, so I can't kick anybody's ass. It's like, bigger than me, who's like Ty size.
Are you calling me fat? God damn it.
Yes. So like the thing is like I'm smaller than a man, but my children are smaller than me. I think I like to think that like, a man would be able to protect me so I can protect my children. That's kind of like the the way
Yeah.
the physical slope goes. Like I'm bigger than my kids. I'll fuck somebody up if anybody tries to hurt my daughter. You know what I mean? But when it comes to people who are generally like a grown ass man, like I wouldn't have that much of a chance, and that sucks. But like that's why I like to feel protected by my male friends. Like why I like to feel protected by my boyfriend. I like to feel protected.
I think, yeah, I was going to touch on that I think that like both sexes, historically speaking, through the like how our species has gotten here, have been very protective, and it's almost in two different ways though. It's like you were pointing out, the women more often protected the young in the village, while the men kind of protected the outskirts of the village from intruders. Like they're two different versions of protection, but it's and
if you think of it, in those terms, it makes more sense for and I think we might have talked about this in the debate, but it makes more sense for the women to be the last line of defense because they're more valuable. Because not to be like perverse, but like you really only need 3 or 4 guys and you can pretty much keep the entire village or community going. I mean, they're fertile all the time. I mean, that's
yeah, and touching back what Ty said on the last podcast, like about the subject. Whenever a woman is pregnant, she's out for a while. She's out of commission for a long ass time.
Yeah, and it's also like a lot of the time I don't think of it as being like it's not you don't you stay in the village because you're weaker. No. It's you stay in the village because you're way more valuable than I am. So let me go die. Like it's fine. Like this is kind of what I'm here for. It's like a Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. I don't know if you.
I've seen that episode. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Meeseeks. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Which so I guess here's the other question that another one that I kind of had for you. Do you think that actually, which one do I want to ask first?
I love that you have prepared questions. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just stuff that I thought of, and I was like, I'm gonna forget this if I don't write it down, because it would have been hard to try to search my mind for it.
Yeah,
because I never would have. This place is a mess. I don't know what yours is like, but so okay, yeah. I'll ask this one first. So I guess that and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems that your idea, like the whole idea of masculinity, is that so long as it's not defined in a sort of ridiculous or foolish fashion, that masculinity is like a good thing, as long as it doesn't get to the point where it's like the dumb crap, like telling us not to feel anything or act like we're not sad when we are, like
masculinity is positive to me until it starts degrading female traits. I'll put it that way.
Right. Okay. So then, is there still, because there's an implication, I think, when people say things like man up to like a male, there's and the idea of that being associated with masculinity being associated with men historically, like is there a unique experience to being male?
Yeah.
Like, is there something about that that's unique?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there are things that, like, as a human, anybody can pick up so far as masculinity goes, like dressing masculine, or like I said, doing hormone replacement therapy to make themselves look more masculine, etc., etc. But no, like at its core, for like cisgender men, I think it's important, and I think that it's something that you can kind of only experience as a cisgender male, and that sucks for people who are trans, and that's just like gender dysphoria sucks. It's just a shitty situation. You have to make the best of it. But yeah, I think it's very important. Just like men can do feminine things, but at the end of the day, it's still gonna be like a brain thing.
So I guess is there, while we've I think all three of us agree that some of the good traits about masculinity are just, well, I mean, you mentioned in the debate when we were talking, Ty, that good things are good.
Yeah, it was kind of
Everyone agrees on that. Like, so we can agree that the good traits about masculinity are good. But is there and while it's good when women have them, also, I think, would you say that is it uniquely beneficial to the person or the community for males to have those traits?
The good ones?
Yeah, the good ones. Yeah.
Only the good ones, yes.
Yeah, I do, because it promotes hard work. It promotes, protecting those who are more important or who need protecting. Like, even like, say, even if it's two men, say one of them is really, really sick, and like we're, like out in the forest in like a tribe, like where there's no civilization like we have now. Like, say if there's two men and one could even be like way more muscular than the other one, but if he's
Ooh.
really, really sick,
I've seen
the
this
other
video.
one, the
Sorry.
the other, God damn it, Ty. The other one would be expected, and I would hope would like want to be the one to go, okay, this person can't do this to the best of their ability. Let me step up and do that for you. It's like there's a layer of sacrifice to it that I think is very noble, very respectful, and very honorable. And I think that is absolutely wonderful to have in a society.
Like the way I kind of see it, and tell me if you agree with me, like and people can debate like socially all day, but I think that the one thing about male privilege that is like objectively pretty observably true is that males, generally speaking, given the same stimulus, are going to be larger and stronger than a woman. So like you have a professional female fighter that steps into a ring with a accountant, she's gonna mangle that dude like in the fight. Like, but if you take a professional male fighter and a professional female fighter, given the same stimulus, more than likely the male's still stronger. Or like if you sit on your couch and don't do anything, either way, you get what I'm saying.
Right.
So given the same stimulus, they're going to be larger and stronger usually. So that's like, to me, that's the one part of male privilege you just can't debate. Like that's
Right.
there. You can just tell,
it's
you can see it.
Yeah, it's literally right in front of your eyes. No, I agree. And that's again, and that's why I think like masculine, like the protective, like fighter type of masculinity isn't a bad thing, because it's like you can't, like, I could say all day like, oh, I'm woman here, or let me go try to kick this dude's ass who's 6'4" and 250 pounds. It's not gonna fucking happen. It's just not. And like, as much as I would like to be that badass, I am not. So I would much rather, like, if that person is fucking with me, I would much rather have a group of my guy friends be like, hey, can we fucking not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess like, and you sort of went where I was kind of going with it anyway, which was that it's using that privilege for the greatest good.
Right, exactly. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not meant to make women feel like they're less. It's not like, because like I said, you would do the same thing for a sickly male friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not protecting women, it's protecting people who need protecting. And that right there is that good shit, as my forefathers would say.
For me, like that whole thing about like the 6'4", 300 and some pound. I think I just made this person bigger, but the big person. I mean, I can relate to that more than you know. I mean, maybe you do understand, but like I'm 5'9", 140 soaking wet. Like literally, you'd have to soak me. 140 soaking wet with a genetic muscle disease. So like I'm pretty much weaker than everybody. Like you might not think you're very strong, but I bet you could probably beat me at arm wrestling.
She could take you. She could totally take you.
That's actually a funny thing, is that there's actually some women that I know like that, because like I said, I'm the guy that tells women to man up. So I've had arm wrestling matches with lots of women.
I believe that.
Like all of my friends, like you'll probably arm wrestle me at some point.
I'm surprised you haven't yet, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised we haven't had like a full-on UFC fight.
Oh my god. Next Jackbox night, can you guys please arm wrestle?
Yes.
Sure. Well, I mean, I have problems with my shoulder now, but
Suck it up.
it kind of like bothers me.
Yeah,
but
just man up, dude. Stop.
Man up.
I mean, I could
fight me like a man, you bitch.
But there's actually, even with my disease, there's still some women that I know that I'm stronger than, or like, I don't know, maybe I have better technique with arm wrestling. I don't know. I'm not like a pro arm wrestler. So here's another question. So something that I think that I've noticed is that, within the last, I don't know, 30 years, maybe maybe less than that, maybe a little bit more. A lot of things have changed. You know, you've got um we've got, you know, women voting, new thing, women owning property, new thing, women being welcome in the workplace as something other than an administrative assistant that's everyone thinks is just trying to marry the boss. You know, women not being thought of as like second class, or like, you know, women being listened to, and not like, even though like sometimes in jest people will be like, oh, the men are talking, like it's just a lot of progress has occurred, you know. And, you know, women being in roles of leadership in companies and in countries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking specifically in the US, obviously, because that's where we are. That there's a lot of encouragement for women to be resilient and be independent and be tough and all these things that they weren't necessarily encouraged to be before. And that's a good thing. It's great. Because it means now, like, if you get married, it's because you really want to, not because you've been forced to, because you don't matter if you don't.
Right.
It's all great. But I think that what's happened is that a lot of the time in helping women get to these places and helping them to realize those traits in themselves, that we've kind of started to neglect like our male children.
No, we absolutely have.
We somehow
I
think
agree
they don't
with
need
that
help with.
Yeah, I agree
But
with
they
that
do need,
wholeheartedly.
and I would argue that they need help with that more than you know, than female children. Because like I said, I didn't really think about it till just now, but like I've never told my niece to suck it up ever, because she doesn't need to. Like I saw this girl, she fell like 2.5, maybe 3 feet off of a piece of playground equipment, flat on her face and tummy. I was like, "You good?"
Damn.
She like gets up, she's like, "Yeah, I'm okay."
That's a tough
And
kid.
then, like,
Hell yeah.
And then I'm sitting there like, "Wow, I might have cried if I did that."
Yeah. No,
But,
I agree with that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like it's what I like to call a shift. It's like the world, like we as a society like saw a problem and we were like, oh shit, everybody fix it and fix it hard. And it's like, you know, we still obviously have some things to go in certain places, but that's like an olive branch that goes 1,000 different ways and we can't even get into all of it. But it shifted so heavily towards like, you know, the women being in power and women being, you know, validated and everything, that it sort of kind of left like the young boys by the wayside, when we need to, you know, we need to empower femininity in women, but we need to do it just as much in little boys, because they're not being validated. They're being told that they need to, you know, be the best or they're nothing. They are told that they can't cry. They are told they can't have feelings, and they can't be gay, and that they can't be trans, and they can't do anything that's outside of the very small box that it is to be a man in society. And I think that's not good. I try, like, whenever I think about feminism, I think about me like fighting for, you know, the rights for men's mental health and making that more like well known, and that it needs to be a thing. Like I'm very, very, very a huge advocate for validating the feelings of young men and boys everywhere.
Going along with what you said, would you say that it is more accepted at this point for men to display feminine traits or for women to display masculine traits?
For women to display masculine traits, it's seen as a very big no-no for men to still be, you know, be seen as anything other than masculine.
Yeah, okay.
It's much easier for a woman to be in a place of power, or to, you know, chase her dreams, or like, you know, do something by herself, and everybody's like, yay, good job. And then like a man, like, I'm feeling really depressed, I'm thinking about seeing a therapist, and you know, all of his male friends are like, oh, don't be a pussy, fuck that, like
Yeah.
drink a beer, you know what I mean?
You're not crazy, bro. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That is one of the big
off.
downsides that I see too. Like I guess like what we're calling, I guess, the negative side of masculinity, which could be the like toxic masculinity. I don't know how you want to like name it, but there is a big discouragement for asking for help. It's like you're not supposed to seek help from anyone else. It's even like the old adage of like men don't ask for directions and shit like that. You're supposed to just like figure it out on your own. You know, don't go to an outside
read the
source.
directions.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah, right.
if you're like doing, like if you're putting something together, it's like, oh, men don't need to read the directions. It's like or you could just do it and get it together like 10 times faster. That's just me.
You know, in a more comical situation, it's like, Siri, take me to. Don't ask for directions, man.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
Don't let your phone tell you where to go.
Your
Man up.
woman phone.
Well, exactly. I turned Siri to a male voice because I did not want some woman telling me everywhere to go. All right.
So I think that because it's like I think that because I don't necessarily think that males really need a lot of help with um the whole thing with like feelings and being open and being emotional and things like that. Like I don't think that we really need help with it. I think that we kind of already know what we're doing. It's just we shouldn't be shamed for it and somehow taught that that thing that we naturally kind of are going to do is bad.
Right, it's being
Um,
stifled because it's a
yeah.
human
Yeah.
thing. It's not something anybody has to learn. It's completely instinctual. It's being stifled, which is the biggest issue. And that's not something that and it sucks because like on the other side of the coin, like women like need I'm trying to word this in the best way that I can. Like we need to focus on both of those things at the same time. Validating men and empowering women need to be like done at the same pace at the same time, which is almost impossible as a society because everybody's on different wavelengths, but that it needs to be something that's a little bit more relevant in this conversation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Speaking.
Yep.
So I think that because it's so I guess well eventually we were going to have to get to the point where we have to address the idea of like gender expression and such. That I think that the thing for me is that when I hear someone talk about being non-binary, I think that that is actually the best definition of just being a human to me.
We're
I
all
don't think there's
some.
actually I don't think there's actually anything unique about it. I think that everybody, if they really think about it, that if they don't consider themselves to be non-binary, then they're kind of pretending to be things that they're not.
Well, I think
like
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
because it's like you're never you can't meet someone who's like 100% like super tough, unshakable all the fucking time. But you're not going to meet somebody that's like completely like tender and nurturing all the time. Like it's not there's people are so much more complex.
Right.
So I think that a lot of the push for using terms to differentiate from being cisgender it's because of the fact that it's almost like you're not allowed to be yourself if you don't use another term to identify. Like, so it's like I can be a man and I can like bake cookies with my niece and then have a tea party and then go shopping for shoes because I fucking love shoes. Actually, I had to get rid of a lot of them, and like that doesn't mean that like I'm just being me. Like I don't just let me be me. Like don't be like man up, don't bake. I'm like bro, cookies are good. Fuck off.
Cookies are good.
It's it's like oh no, I made Bridget hungry. I'm sorry.
Oh, you did. I actually have cookies, so I'm not mad about it.
But like I agree with the use of the term, but it's almost like if we could be given some kind of liberty to just be ourselves, we wouldn't have to choose a term to use. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I hope this is coming out right.
No, it is. And
it's just unfortunate that people just won't just let you fucking be you. Like
Right. In the same vein though, and please excuse me because your girl about to go on a tangent. Okay, so that is a wonderful idea in theory. It is, but we as a society are not there yet. And I think that gender like is still very important to us as a society because you're say, a trans person, let's say a male to female transgender person is born into this world and they suffer from dysphoria because they were born into the wrong body. Those gender roles and being able to switch that gender role from the sex that they were born with is something that is extremely validating and extremely needed because that in society it's like girls pink boys blue, right? So they're born into the wrong body and they're told to do this but they want this instead, and that gender separation as long as that gender separation is there, those gender terms need to stay because it gives those people some sort of validation and some sort of hope to be able to change their gender expression and their gender identity and be validated by outside sources. So it's still very important that gender is a thing and you can subscribe to either male or female. And it's also important for people who feel uncomfortable being seen as either, who just want to be human, whether they look like a woman or they look like a man or they look completely androgynous to the point where you have no idea what the fuck is between their legs because it doesn't matter. Like it's still very important in the society that, and we have a before being non-binary. But non-binary for everyone is something that would even remotely work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't I didn't purposely like exclude trans people from the discussion. But
No.
Ty, do you remember when we did customer service together, that trans person that we worked with?
Oh my God, no.
Really?
Were they male to female or female to male?
Male to female.
I really do not. Okay, hold on. Is there any chance that they were like so passing that I didn't even notice they were trans? Or
no?
I mean, that was okay. That was just years ago. I
Well,
probably just don't remember.
I can. So there's a problem that then once again this is actually feeding the tangent even further. We're going even further off. But something that really pissed me off was that when I worked there, because like a variation of the phrase, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, treat it like a duck.
Okay.
So, and realizing that maybe it might be a bad thing that I treat people differently based on their perceived sex. But regardless of that, it used to really make me mad because people would call her, like other men that we worked with would call her dude and bro. And I know exactly why.
That's so
and it made
fucked.
me really fucking angry. But I'd call her like, because I'm a southern boy, so like I say darling, not darling, darling. Like that's just, and I mean it like in an affectionate way, like almost like an uplifting way. Like it's just like,
right.
It's saying like you are dear to me because you exist for no other reason than that.
Okay.
Right.
That I'll go die for you kind of thing. Just in the same vein as that. Yeah.
Right.
And to some degree that's almost kind of true. But it made me really mad because I would call her that, like just like I would talking to any other like woman. But like the guys that would call her dude and bro and shit like that, like I know what they're trying to be like, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what fucking? So does every goddamn buddy else, bro.
Good
like,
for
you're
you.
Not special.
You're a dick. Congrats.
Like, it's so weird when people purposely
treat that
like
duck like a fucking duck. Treat the duck like a duck.
It's weird when people like either purposely dead name someone or purposely like misgender them to like show. I don't understand the reason for that. You know, it's like that's the like I've heard that come from like, you know, like Ben Shapiro and people from that like that line of thinking where it's like, oh, well, you're not biologically this, so I'm only going to call you this. And it's like, that makes absolutely no fucking sense. That's the same to me as like, if I introduce myself as Ty to someone, they're like, no, let me see your fucking birth certificate. Your real name is Tyler. I'm going to call you Tyler instead of Ty. You know, it's like,
yeah, and,
who the
and they
fuck
get
cares?
mad about it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They get mad about it. Like, they are upset that you want to shorten your name. Like, fucking dare you. Like, that's the thing. It makes people so closed-minded. They need to act out of aggression because they're fucking terrified, and that's the wrong way to be as a person. And it's heartbreaking that there's so many people who do that just to do it. And it's like, God, what is this, 5th grade? You're a bully? Congrats. Like, go home and not satisfy your wife and go on go about your day.
Why'd you low blow? Shots fired. Yeah, and but that just, I don't know, that just drives me up the freaking wall. Like it just treats someone like how it is they're looking to be treated. And like, so for instance, and I realize that this might ruffle feathers a bit, but for me, it's like a trans person, I will treat them like whatever they want to be treated like in whatever fashion they prefer. But the bottom line is that unless you're specifically asked a question and one very specific question, there's no reason to ever treat them any other way. So I actually used to hang out with a trans person like when I was in high school. And that was back when I was a mall rat. Actually, that was more like middle school. And it's like, okay, I'll hang out with her and then call that person her and she and talk to them like, you know, how I would typically talk to a woman. But then if you ask me, is that person a woman? I'd be like, well, no, but they want to be treated like that. So,
well, but what does the term woman mean, right? Because it's,
because to me, it's like, so the thing we said about like masculinity being like poorly defined, like if you ask someone what a man is or what a woman is, a lot of the time they'll be like, a man is someone with a penis.
Okay, but what if you were born a man and had an accident where your penis was chopped off? Are you no longer a man? Or you know what I mean?
Is
like
someone with a Y chromosome. I mean, it's like there's ways that where when you get down to it, you can observably tell if someone's male or female.
But you can only do that with biology. Like if you're talking about in 99% of situations where you're interacting with someone, you don't know. You know what I mean? Like if it's someone who is a trans female to male, they're trans, they are, you know, you have no idea. You know, like you're saying, there's some people that you can tell. There are some people that are so passing that you would have no idea. So like if someone asks you, is that person a man? You have no help but answer yes, because in that case, that term means nothing about biology. Well, it means it's a gender expression thing.
In this situation, before we get too emotional about this subject, in this situation, I'm talking about a friend that I know for a fact is trans because they've actually let me know. I'm not talking about a stranger. If someone asks me like, if we're out like, hey bro, that hot chick, you think that's a dude? I'd be like, I don't know, but I am going to go hit on that person.
That human. I'm going to hit on that human.
I will find out for you. You sit here and fucking wonder, and I'm just gonna go carpe diem.
Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe get completely turned down because I'm not charming at all. And somewhat abrasive sometimes.
Only slightly.
You know, it's like could get shot down. Like I'm gonna go either fail or succeed and get your answer, but damn, they cute. That's we're done. Like that's you sit here and wonder and have like 8 more beers and go home alone. And I'll possibly go home more disappointed than you, or maybe with a friend.
But no, I was just pointing out that like in most situations when we use the term man or woman, we're not actually saying anything about biology. It's more like it has to do with the expression and how that person is presenting or how we see them, I guess, right?
Yeah, but there's still ways that like the majority of the time your perception will be correct. Like not always. Like I mean, I think that very few people would look at me in my current, regardless of the flannel. I think very few people would look at me in my current state and mistake me as anything other than male. I have pretty dark hair on my face, and my bone structure is also pretty clearly, you know, my voice, however. Well, a little scraggly, sort of weird. Story. It's like you're a 13-year-old someone. So yeah, it's sorry, my cat's being a cat. It's the cat interruptions. We've had too many already.
I know.
But you know, I guess at this point we're kind of like moving away from the subject. But I think that it's just about like that it. So I guess giving up on the idea of masculinity altogether, maybe not a good idea, but perhaps figuring out how, if we're going to use that term, how it fits now, probably better than giving up altogether.
Well, I think, I mean, like the idea.
Do we redefine or just give up on the whole damn thing?
Well, I think like the agreement we came to in the first discussion is like it's never going to go away no matter what. Like, but redefining is probably the best practice, right?
I think so.
I think for a long time, it's meant multiple things that could be negative or could be bad. I think that, I mean, it's just a tradition from our society being very different for so long and changing so rapidly recently. You know, I mean, like a lot of, like you're pointing out, a lot of the shit we deal with in our society is brand fucking new. It is, you know, it's not stuff that humans have had to deal with for the majority of our entire time being humans.
Like even like we have a thing. I'd say that we probably, aside from a few other, maybe like, I think Malaysia is pretty diverse, but there's not very many countries that are as culturally diverse as the United States are, and that's another thing that we have to deal with. That, you know, other people don't. And you know, a lot of the ideas now that like we're prosperous enough that people have options of, you know, where they fit in, and there's not these like, you know, stringent rules and things. Like, yeah, this is stuff. But you know, like when I talk to people in their like 70s about this, or like, because I work with some pretty old people, or like my mom or whoever, like a lot of the time they're like, why are you worried about this? I'm like, because we have to deal with this.
Yeah.
This is for people my age that we need to figure out, how do we keep doing this stuff? It's not as cut and dry as it was for you guys. Like, we don't have a bunch of people like saying, this is you have no options, be that. In some ways, I think we actually have the burden of responsibility for deciding what kind of person am I going to be. At the same time, we're not. We have the benefit of not being so limited in who people are willing to let us be.
Yeah.
But I think that we also have a responsibility that a lot of people, you know, older than us didn't really, and we have a lot of those people that are of that age to thank for the benefits we have, as like the options we have, as the kind of people we want to be. But it's funny because in a lot of ways it was like there was a whole lot of things that were fought for, and it was like, oh, this is great, but what do we do now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's our problem.
Yeah.
Right. And we're kind of in like a crazy time period, because like it's never been so easy to be yourself and be validated, but also so hard. Like, there's so many people where it's like, say you are transgender, say that, you know, there's so many people who are like accepting and loving. There's so many communities, support groups, and all of that, but it's still so hard to be like, hey, this is actually who I am, and it's not the person you thought that I was this entire time. Like, it's hard to like turn somebody's entire life and their entire perception of you. It's really hard to turn that off, because so many people are still saying like, no, you were born this way, so you're this way, get over it. And then there's other people like, yeah, I'll absolutely call you these pronouns and respect the hell out of you. So it's like you're kind of stuck in the middle. You kind of got to pick your battles, I think.
Well, and it is like, I mean, I think like what Distance was talking about, it's kind of a it's a symptom of things being so easy in so many ways for us. You know, like if you are literally having to fight for survival, you know, this is not something that you really have the luxury to consider, right? Versus like in our society, you know, it's like we have so much shit taken care of for us as far as like how we get our basic like survival, the things we need for survival, that we actually have the luxury to then look inside and say, well, shit, what am I? What does this mean? What does it mean to be me? What am I supposed to be? Like that.
Why am I here?
Yeah, exactly. And that leads to like a very different existential problem. That, it's a little.
It absolutely does. Like, other people didn't have time to think about it because they were just worried about eating that day.
Yep.
And you know, as we discussed earlier, that you know, some individuals are physically more suited for a certain task. Like, there could be like a really large person who could make a fantastic lumberjack, but they don't have to do that, because like they can be an accountant if they want to. They can they can go become a professional chef or restaurateur.
They can sell phones for T-Mobile.
Yeah. Oof. That gets a big oof.
Big oof in the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of cool, but it's also kind of like the existential difficulty. Like there's a guy I work with that has it's a quote on his wall. I have no idea who the quote's by, but it says, "Happiness is the ability to fret over whether or not you are happy."
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's like we're not wrapped up in, because at a certain point it was like, whatever you're best suited for is what you do. Like, that you just go do that and you have no options.
Well, exactly. Like I wonder how many, like, I feel like I've said this before, but I wonder how many old, like, ancient languages had a word that would equate to happy. You know, like if you're talking about a language that existed 10,000 years ago when people were actually fighting for survival, was there a word that meant happy? What would be the purpose of that word? Like,
I've never even thought about that. That's crazy. You're right.
So I guess that maybe that as things change, as language changes, culture changes, the words we're talking about, specifically like masculinity and femininity in contrast to each other, whatever, eventually that will probably change too, as long as, like, you know, prosperity continues and, you know, the world, the area that we inhabit, that, you know, perhaps these things will change, but it's like, it's our responsibility now to sort of start that, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how do we sort of set things in motion and then allow culture to evolve the way that it should? Of course, I mean, so here's a question for you. If like something happens, something really bad, there's like societal collapse, the economy goes completely to hell, the food industry is completely done, and it's just total craziness, rule of law collapses, and everyone is just has to sort of figure things out and fend for themselves. When things, if things get that way, if we got to a point where prosperity began to just crumble, would traditional gender roles just come back as a natural thing?
I think at where we are in society right now, yeah, they would.
Within one generation, or are you talking about like over time?
What if we were like the most egalitarian we could possibly be?
Like us, like right now. Like if you
yeah,
and Ty and I were like all out, I think, yeah, with the like society the way it is now, I think it would backslide because we aren't that far out of it yet. We're still
it's not backsliding because culture is, it's backsliding because prosperity is.
Right.
Like, you know, like, because everything's gone to hell. Like, well, what do you do now? Like, well, sorry, enormous person that's an accountant, I'm gonna need you to pick up an axe.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You know? Well, the reason for that is because as a species, that's how we know that for sure will work. So that's what we're gonna do for survival. Like we know that it will get us out alive, so that's what's going to happen. It's we don't have time to sit there and question, like, you know, well, what about this and what about this? Let's send the women out or the non-binary people out with the axe, you know what I mean? So like it would do that just for the simple fact that it is proven.
Yeah. I wouldn't, I mean, you do what works, right? Like that's kind of like we learn from experience. So yeah, I think that makes the most sense. I don't know though if it would be within one generation like that quickly. I feel like there's a lot of people that believe so strongly in a lot of the things we're talking about that it's like, well, no, I you know, fuck that. You go cut your own wood. You know, like different ways of like rather than like enforcing like sliding back instantly. I think that it may be, but I do think that over 1 or 2 generations that would probably happen very quickly. And I mean, like we're saying, like by necessity, you know, like it's a luxury to be able to even consider these things.
Yeah.
The fact that we could even sit here and like pontificate, I guess, about any of it is like the fact that we're it's a time where philosophers can be philosophers and artists can be artists. Yeah. Because we have like the prosperity to like have those things happen, you know. And hey, I love me some rock and roll music, so I'm glad that people can make that rock and roll. So are we? I guess we're sort of getting on time here. Do you guys want to go ahead and just sort of like make closing statements, or is there anything else that we maybe need to brush on here? Maybe some other questions that should be.
I don't have any questions that I have. Bridget, do you have any questions that you had written down or anything? How much did you prepare?
Let's see. 0.
0 prepared?
0 prepared. I am just here. I'm winging it. I'm flying by the seat of my pants with everything else I do in life. So I'm good. I feel like this was a very informing discussion.
You do know what we do around here, right?
What is it? Oh, we do. Live. Yes, exactly. We always do it live. We don't do it the other way.
I seem prepared right now, but like this is not like a normal thing. Usually I'm like all about the SSP initiative, just like sit, stay pretty. Oh, that's just what I do. I'm just like, you know, just show up and be pretty.
That's my plan for the night. That's me.
I'll go first on closing statements then. I guess like I definitely agree that of course there are good traits to the umbrella that we're calling masculinity. Basket, actually. I like the basket analogy more. There's like there's a whole basket full of traits that, like we talked about earlier, it's going to mean different things to different people. You ask someone, hey, what is a grocery basket to you? There's going to be different items in each basket. I think masculinity is the same way. There's going to be a bunch of different traits. I think a lot of people are going to agree on a certain few. There's kind of there's like the milk, eggs, and bread of masculinity, if you will.
Right.
But then there's some people that are going to have kale in their grocery basket. There's some people that are going to have cheese. You know, like there's going to be some differentiation there. But there are definitely good traits. I think that these traits are good for everyone, though, and I think that's what we need to step away from, is the thinking that, like, oh, if you're a man, you're supposed to do this. If you're a woman, you're supposed to do this. Whenever you're putting people in boxes by how they should behave rather than just letting them be themselves, I think that's when it becomes a dangerous thing. And that's like, I mean, like the whole like boys don't cry, like that kind of shit can be very harmful for young men. And I think that that's what we really need to get away from. Like we've explained, though, that's not necessarily masculinity. It can mean different things, but to some people, I feel like that is kind of in that basket, and we need to get those people maybe to like put that back on the shelves and pick up something else to put in their grocery basket, I think.
Very well said.
Wow, what an analogy. God damn.
That was good. That was good stuff.
I was like, and he said kale.
And he said K.
Yeah, so well, we usually let the guests have the last word. So, I don't really have a whole lot to say other than, like, I think that existence is all about being a better human, and that whatever traits we decide are best, regardless of what they're associated with, they should be adopted by all of us and celebrated by all of us. And we should never allow we should never value the other over what we know is right. So if you've thought hard enough about it and you've determined that the kind of person you want to be is the best kind of person you can be, then be that, regardless of what anybody has to say. And that will make all of us way better, and it'll help us lift up the people around us, regardless of how we were born or how we express ourselves or how we would like to be treated or called. We can all decide on the best ways to be a person, and that we don't have to limit that to just one umbrella, or one basket or another basket.
Thank you.
That you can put all the good stuff in yours and put all the other crap back on the shelf. So essentially, I'm just echoing Ty to some degree.
I think I'm about to do the same thing. I think at the end of the day, I think that we as a society are on the right track to get where we need to be to do exactly what you just said, which is, be the best person that you can be. And I feel like at the end of the day, I would rather it be more about who you are as a person and how you balance masculinity and femininity within yourself rather than how you do it with other people. I feel like men could benefit from being a little bit more feminine and being comfortable with it within society, as well as women being able to be a little bit more masculine and being comfortable within society. So, like I said, I think that we are on the right track. We just we have to tip the scales until they get even. And I think that that's where we're headed, but it's just going to take time, just like everything else does.
Nice. Well, dude, I love both of you guys. Awesome episode. I think this has been great. As you can tell, we have reached the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, hit that like button, subscribe to keep up to date with what we're doing here, and comment below and let us know your opinions on the subject of masculinity. If you're interested in further taking part in the discussion or even possibly joining us as a future guest, join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. Don't forget to join us next week. Another episode live Wednesday at, we should probably just say 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, since we've started to do this earlier, on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you guys for listening. I love you all, and have a great week.